this will be an interesting one to talk about. Um, we should start off by saying that this is at the movies with Lo and
Mm-hmm.
Mo.
It is.
Uh, this week we are watching Manifest Destiny Down, Space Time, which is quite the title for quite the film.
Directed by
And
Jonathan Baker and Bo D. Both.
y-
So interesting name, Bo D. Not sure. Not sure too much about him.
OD, it's kind of fun. It's like feels like a McG situation,
Mm-hmm.
something. I did look into the credits of this movie, and it doesn't look like, not that people from this movie haven't done a whole lot, but it doesn't look like there's been like a second film from them yet. I didn't notice a whole lot even from like the main cast really. So it definitely does feel small scale.
It looks like they're
Um,
working on some future ones. So I wonder if COVID kind of got in the way of their plans here, because I know that they have some future credits.
yeah,
I believe.
yeah, definitely possible. We're covering independent films this season, um, and you may say, "Hello, Mo. This episode was supposed to be in my feed a week ago. What's going on here?" Well, don't worry. There's nothing wrong with your time flux capacitor. Uh, old Mo here had a long work week where I had to work late every night in order to get out of town on the weekend for a wedding. So we decided to push the pods 1 week, but
Mm-hmm.
we are back to talk about Manifest Destiny Down, Space Time. I need to keep saying it so that I don't jumble up the words. As well as later this week, a classic horror story on After the Movies. So you have that to
Mm-hmm.
look forward to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So
you
this is
picked
one that
this
I picked.
film.
One. Yeah, this is the one I picked.
And so I am very curious. I definitely have thoughts, but I'm curious about like if you had expectations going in. If you pick, how did you pick? How did you come to find this or pick this? And first impressions and whatnot.
Well, I think I was wrong in my original assumption. I thought they filmed this in Pittsburgh, and they did not film this in Pittsburgh. There's so it was a Pittsburgh Film Festival is where I found this movie. Then I must
Okay,
so this was not filmed in Pittsburgh, or at least I'm pretty sure it wasn't, because it was way
still
too
fits
sunny,
our
way too sunny.
fits still fits our criteria though of
Yeah.
clearly an independent feature, and I
Hmm.
don't say that. I don't emphasize clearly as like a mean thing or anything. It's just you can tell,
Yeah. So I mean, immediately I didn't have any expectations for this film, at all. I mean, kind of going into any of these independent films, I kind of reserve any kind of idea of it, just because I don't want to, I want to experience it how it was intended, and I don't want to kind of like make myself disappointed like I have in some of these other like big feature films that we've talked about. It's There were parts that I liked in this film, and there were parts that I definitely didn't like. I think the story was interesting. The world that they were trying to create is cool. I wasn't expecting 90% of this film to be just them in a car driving, which was, I don't know, like I understand why that they did that, but I think that part kind of lost me because I was expecting more of kind of like a chase and kind of more special effects, just from judging off of the cover and just little clips
right.
clips that I've seen. I was kind of expecting more, and one of the big turnoffs, and I understand it's a low budget film, but I did not like the how clearly you could tell like the green screen and like the car scene. It was just like, I don't know. I just would have rather you almost parked the car in a parking lot and just done it that way, as opposed to like seeing these weird shots on the green screen that didn't match at all, and it was just kind of like
It's
really put me out of this movie.
there was a there's an old SNL bit. My aunt used to have this VHS, and I'd borrow it all the time. Uh, and it was like an SNL tape, like officially licensed SNL tape, and it started with Toonces the cat that could drive a car, and the bit every time was that the car would like drive off a cliff. There'd be like people in the car with the cat, and they'd be like Toonces, and it would like drive off the cliff, and then they'd show footage of the car, like stock footage of a car rolling down a hill and exploding. And this reminded me of Toonces the cat because it was was very clearly like a stationary
Yeah.
vehicle or a car set with a fake, with a fake cat that's arms are going like this, and you could the background just kind of turning, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there was stuff in
Um,
that background that like didn't even make sense. Like you were like, wait, what? It was like that was going one way and the car was going the other way, and then when they were like reversing the whole way, it seemed like that was like they were kind of like always like crossing each other, and it just didn't seem
yeah,
natural at all. Maybe that
yeah.
was the direction. I don't know. I mean, there's definitely room for like if that's the creative decision that you wanted. I mean, hey, I get it.
Here's what I wrestled with. I'll show my cards. I did not like this movie. But I wrestled with whether I should say that or not, because this is an independent film and I don't want to discourage anybody. And so here's the thing: is like there are some things I do like about this movie that I really want to highlight. And me not liking this movie means nothing. So like nobody should take this as like a don't see this movie. And if for whatever reason, cast or crew of the movie hear this, definitely I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy with a podcast and a microphone. So please do not take this as like discouragement. I'm not going to rail against the movie or anything. Personally, it was not for me. Um, I just think that if we made a movie and somebody covered it, rather than having them to walk on eggshells in order to like make us feel better, if somebody had thoughts or constructive criticism, I'd want to hear it. So
Yeah, no, I agree.
um, it's kind of what I landed on. And so the things that I will give props for, I also did not expect so much of the film to take place in the car. However, I think that is impressive. What they story they told was impressive with how limited their resources were and their set was. Like I feel like they really utilized that to the max. The car thing didn't bother me as much. I didn't expect it to take place so much there, but at a certain point, I was almost like, wow, okay, like so they had a story to tell. Probably had set restrictions for these days or whatever this location, so they are working into it as much as they can, like using this vehicle they have or whatever. And they do enough in terms of like yeah, like hitting reverse and driving reverse a bunch of the way, which is like I don't a lot of like this isn't really my kind of comedy either. So like some of the jokes didn't really land for me, but there are bits like that I think are pretty funny. The fact that they drive like forget that they're driving in reverse, and then like 5 minutes later they're having a conversation in the car and he's still driving in reverse. That
Mhm.
made me laugh, you know. Um,
I guess to that point, like I didn't really laugh too much through this film, knowing there were parts that were funny. I think a lot of the like interaction at first between Toby and Kara there was interesting. Like the kind of the like Catholic school sorority girl versus the what I assumed to be like a frat boy, but then later on you find is just like an introverted science guy, but he's got like the surfer persona to him. So it was kind of an interesting take on it. I wasn't expecting that. Their like interaction when they were back in his apartment was really funny, but as the story goes on and they try to tell the story, a lot of those jokes were lost on me. And now when I say this, like I was already tired, but I had to watch this movie in two parts because I actually fell asleep when I watched it. Like I fell asleep during it when I watched it the first time, and I had to watch it again. Now I did watch it late at night, so it wasn't that the movie was boring. I fell asleep, but there were some
right.
parts where like it didn't keep me. I can't say this movie kept me interested enough to like want to stay up and watch it. I was like, I'll just watch it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I think that it is ambitious in a good way. Like I would not shy away. Here, this is the kind of thing that makes me interested in like what this, I don't know if Baker and Bodie are a duo or not, but this is what makes me interested in what they do next. Is like even though on an execution level, this one did not hit the spots for me or tick the boxes technically,
Yeah.
um, is ambitious enough that I'm just curious to see like what they try next, and that's important. I mean, like the story itself is strange enough, uh, and I really do give them points for like it's like an A for effort situation where, um, know how easy it would be for one of us to write not that it would be easy for us to write a script, but how easy it would be for us if one of us wrote a script like this to say, oh, there's too much going on here, we can't film this
Hmm.
doesn't make sense, you know. And for better or for worse, with the budget they had, they filmed a movie that has cars disappearing and reappearing. And it has like people disappearing and reappearing. There are Terminator like effects. There's
There's a
there's
lot
no
to like.
shortage. There's
There's
no
a
shortage of them trying.
no.
You know.
Which is
Um,
why sometimes I think like I don't want to be too like hypercritical of this movie. A, because it is an independent film, and B, I think a lot of the things that I didn't like were a creative decision from the team, and it's something that they wanted to do where I just didn't like it. So like I'm more like I want to give them room because obviously it's their film. If they wanted to go crazy with it, and that's like the creative like focus that they wanted, then that's cool. But it just did not land for me. And now like some of the
yeah.
effects that were cool, but I mean there was a lot to like that. Oh, and the one part, I think the part that really turned me off, I don't know about you, is when we first hear that agent talk.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, in his
no.
voice.
I was like, no. I was like,
They
no.
did they did a pretty good bit that made me laugh. That was him singing along to the radio like on his way. They also had the music choices in this were so bizarre. There was a song. Well, it said okay, so it did say music by Baker and Bodie as well, or one of them.
Oh wow.
And there was a song that was like a virgin, but it was not like a virgin. And it was also not Weird Al's Like a Surgeon. It was something about like a virgin being touched for the very last time or something
Yeah, it was
weird. It was
something
something
like
very
that.
strange in the beginning. Um, there are a few issues about this movie for me. I think that the best way for me to describe kind of my issue with this movie, again, this is like it's almost interesting because we're watching somebody on a micro level making movies, and so like again, this is not to discourage, but just kind of like I do think that if you do something long enough, you will get better at it. And I would say that we will keep an eye on these people, and that if they do have a second, uh, you know, project come out, that we would definitely talk about it and cover it on the podcast. But
Oh, 100%.
from a writing and directing standpoint, I mean this not meanly. This is just how I felt. This is how I explained. Jess came down like halfway into the movie and was like eating and like sat down to like watch like 10 minutes of it.
Hmm.
I was like, this feels like you told aliens what a movie was, and aliens made a movie based on what they think a movie
Well,
was.
honestly, man, to touch on your point here, it does kind of seem like it's like all these things like AI are writing things now. It's like I've studied 6,000 movies and I wrote a movie. It kind of seemed like that.
Right. And the reason I feel that way is because like specifically in the opening when they're in that apartment sequence, which I'm not saying is a bad sequence, this is a creative choice if I've ever seen one. It just was strange. Was there was like so little dialogue. Like it was so much. I mean, like the first like 20 minutes of the film took place in this apartment, and it was him like going like to invoke Tim Allen. It would be him turning around and being like, "Huh?" And like making noises and like physical comedy, but there would be like no dialogue at all,
Yeah.
and it was just really strange. And again, maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's a creative choice, and maybe it like works for some people.
I don't know. It kind of turned
I'm
me
not
off a little
even.
bit there. I will agree
Yeah,
with you.
I'm not saying I hated it, but it was just like I'd never seen a movie do that before. Um, the other thing, there's like just little things that I think going into their second project they might be able to work on. Like there's a part where they're in the car and they turn the music on in the car, and the music just drowns out what the actors are saying. And I was watching with subtitles, so I was able to keep up. But if you hadn't had subtitles on, you would be kind of lost
I
at the
think another
conversation.
thing too is it's like it's good to focus on like what they're doing, and like when we say wrong, it's mine and Aaron's wrong. It's not doesn't
Right.
mean that it's
Yep.
like textbook wrong or anything like that. Just our
Right.
our interpretation of what we think wrong is. They're like not to say on the same, but like they, Jonathan Baker, uh, independent filmmaker, owns his own production company, similar to what we're doing. So when we put out films, there's going to be people talking, and it's important to note like sometimes you're going to hit it and sometimes you're not, but it's important to learn like what you did right and what you did wrong, and hopefully you can fix it on the next one. Now I am excited
Yeah.
to see that next one.
Part of this podcast is us figuring out what we can take from movies. So like this isn't. We don't have any grand illusions of like, we're not going to send this to Jonathan Baker and Bodie and be like, "Hey, take note, pal." Like this is more just us like talking about this kind of strange independent film that we saw, which is right up our alley. Like these kinds of movies are what we're looking to watch, and it's us taking note of the things that work for us and the things that don't, so that when we get to the level of, making the films that we want to make, these are kind of some things we can keep in mind in terms of what rubs us the right way or the wrong way on
Mhm.
screen.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan
Um,
of like green screen, like poorly done green screen. I know it's like obviously used in like big budgets and stuff, and I get why you use it in kind of these low budget films. It puts you in a scene that you weren't able to actually get to. But I think from me as somebody in my filmmaking mind, what I would want to do is if it's something that I can't do, then I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to try to
right.
do it with the green screen. I'm not going to like if it's something that just I can't do it right now, then I'm going to just write the scene, or I'm going to figure out a way that I can do it, cuz obviously like car scenes and stuff like that, there's a lot that go into like rigging and like actually like sectioning off road and having permits and all of that stuff. So it's very hard to do to even begin with, but I'm not a big fan of like poorly done green screen where it's like that like 1970s, that like older like TV kind of look.
Right. Yeah. I will say another highlight of the movie for me that I really liked was the segments that were animated. I thought that the animation was cool. I thought including those in the film was cool. It kind of broke things up a little bit, and I feel it does have this kind of cool feel of almost like whether it works or not, you have these live acted segments mixed with animated segments mixed with like musical segments mixed with scenes of like almost like dreamlike scenes where he's like teaching physics and stuff. So like some of this stuff works in my opinion, some of it doesn't, but I admire it feels like a movie that will literally isn't like afraid to try anything,
Mm-hmm.
which is like just an awesome spirit to have going
Yeah,
into a movie like this.
definitely.
um and it was Toby and Kara were the characters names, right?
Yep.
So I would say that Toby's performance I did not love. Um, I just thought that it was a little wooden, like a little basic in terms of like the direction seemed to just be kind of like on the nose. Like it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of nuance to his character or how he acts. I
Yeah,
do
it
think
looks like they
Kara.
are. Looks like they're kind of just in. Like he was in. Looks like he was in Harper Finch, which is another Jonathan Baker film, and he looks like he was in like kind of like an extra in General Hospital. So he only has 2 acting credits to his name, Jeff Kenny.
He's
So
also he's a Swedish rapper,
oh, I did not know that. Which
and
makes sense, I
so
guess, from the rap part.
from the rap, which is so funny because there's no explanation in the film for. They never mention him being Swedish.
Hmm.
You can tell that he doesn't like necessarily have like an accent, but you can tell that the way that he speaks English is kind of like you can tell that he's from somewhere, but it's like hard to place. And then for whatever reason, we know now, but the rap sequences in the movie are in like Swedish, and it all falls into place knowing that. Kara, I believe, is a professional string player,
Harpist.
harpist. Yes, and I think that she did her best with the script and with the material she had. To me, it seemed like it seemed like almost like two different schools of acting on screen with each other. Whereas, and I get to it an extent, it's supposed to be this way because their characters don't mesh at first. You know, it's like there's this guy that doesn't care about what's going on, or he seems like he does, but he's kind of like this laid back. And then she's very, you know, worried about everything that's happening. I think she did pretty well with what she was
I
given.
enjoyed her performance, and I think from like my take on it is I really enjoyed her performance, and I agree with you probably about 70% on Jeff's performance as well. I think he played to the way, like, I don't want to be too critical on him because I think he played to how his character was written.
Definitely,
So I don't think that
definitely,
was, I don't
I
think that
agree.
was like Jeff's, like, I think a lot of the hangups I have from his acting was the way that the script was written, not him acting. I just want to clarify that for me.
Sure, sure, yeah. Um, I didn't like the it felt unnecessary. So you have these two stereotypes. One of them is like but it's funny because his stereotype is like two rolled into one.
Yeah.
They're like he's like the stoner guy, but he's also like a genius.
Hmm.
And then she is supposed to be like dumb, and I think she's supposed to kind of be like she sleeps around a lot or whatever. I did not like the random inclusion of the detail that she was molested by a priest.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be a joke or not, but like whether it was or not, it was like totally left field for the scene, and you're like, it's kind of like when somebody makes a joke like that at a party that
Hmm.
you're not expecting, and everyone around nobody knows whether to laugh or not, and then they go, huh, anyways, and and it just the conversation just keeps going. I was like, that was a weird detail.
Yeah.
Um, but this movie is available on Tubi for
Hmm.
free. You can also rent it, I believe, on YouTube for Tube or Vudu,
You
one of the two, for
can
like $2.99.
you can rent it on Amazon Prime Video and you can rent it on YouTube.
Okay. So, for those that would like to support the filmmakers, and we definitely encourage that, um, should only cost you about $2.99 to rent the film. It is available on Tubi with ads. I don't know if they see any residuals from that or anything, or ad money. Um, but this was an experience
Hmm.
that I will not forget. I'm talking about. It does sound like I'm walking on eggshells. I'm really not. This isn't like the worst movie I've ever seen or anything. Like when I said that I didn't like it personally, again, it's not like I hated this or anything at
No,
all.
no, is
Um,
no, it's not the
trying to
worst
be
movie that I've ever seen, but is it like the bottom of my list and the ones we've seen so far for this season? Yes.
agreed. But again, that is not to discourage anyone from uh, A, watching the movie, or
No.
B, especially not to discourage the cast or crew to keep making stuff, because again, this is the kind of thing that we would almost like to keep an eye on because we're a growing company with goals. And it almost is like, it's gonna sound weird, but it's almost this reassuring thing where you make your first thing and maybe your first thing isn't what you thought it was going to be, or maybe it doesn't turn out. Maybe they love the movie, maybe they're super proud of it, and that's awesome too. But it's like this thing of maybe the second thing they make is better, and I would love to follow up on that, and I'd love to see what the kind of progress they make
Well, I
from
think,
here now, you know.
and I think this is for anybody. Like, whenever you try to do anything creative, you have to put something out there, whether it's to be watched, listened, read. Like, if you truly have a passion for something, you have to put something out there. And we did it with our first like sketches. Now, is it something that, like, looking back on it and being like, oh, these were great? No, but it's like at least you have a baseline of where you're coming from. Like, you have to start somewhere. You have to start.
Yeah, we
Like, you have to,
yeah.
and like, and for anybody at home that's like super critical of these movies and being like, oh, well, this is garbage, or I wouldn't do this. Well, guess what? They're actually out there doing it. So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a bunch, and how you know, I don't think our first sketches are bad, but I definitely see a leap in quality between like the first half of the season and the second half.
Yeah.
That just came from practice in terms of writing and filming, and we're not going to remove those first episodes just because they don't always hit. It is again very cool to be able to track our progress based on real, being able to compare sketch 1 with sketch 10.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know that I have too much more to say. The genre mashup is admirable. This is like a stoner road trip sex
Romance,
comedy romance that's also about like part Terminator Matrix
sci-fi,
parody.
romance,
Yeah.
comedy.
Again, like I can't get mad at that.
No.
Yeah, this could have been the worst movie that I've ever seen, and I would still give props to the fact that like people aren't out there doing that. That
No.
is very fun to me. I have an admiration for movies that don't always execute properly, but that's really swing for the fences, and I feel like that is probably the best pro here.
Yeah.
Manifest Destiny down.
100%.
So that being said, I actually have to check the list. I don't know what we're watching next week.
Yeah, we're already 4 episodes in to season 3 of At the Movies, which is crazy to think about. While Aaron's looking at the list, I'm going to plug a couple of things. If you guys would like to join us on our Patreon for $3 or $5 a month, every single tier gets you access to our Discord where you can talk with us about the movies, and supports all the content that we have going out and supports us directly. And there's also some really cool behind the scenes and kind of special Patreon only items, and it's only going to get more, and our prices are going to stay the same. They'll be 3 and 5, so definitely recommend you getting in there. And thank you to those that watch this and to those that listen to this, because it seems like a pretty even amount at this point. So I really appreciate all of you on either side. So thank you.
Absolutely agree. Jimmy, once a season, we take a break to watch something that kind of sort of follows the rules, but breaks the rules a little bit. And our rules for this season were independent films of the last 10 years. I'd like to throw it back for this coming week. I want to break the rules for a minute. So I want to give you two options. Similarly, you gave me two options for after the movies last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is fun. You have no idea what I'm about to propose, so I'm going to do it live on the show. You can decide based on what you have or haven't seen before, or what you would like to see. Um, Originally had picked Wet Hot American Summer. I will also put forward Clerks, the original Clerks by Kevin Smith. Wet Hot American Summer by David Wayne. Clerks, one of the most influential independent films and comedies of all time. Wet Hot American Summer, honestly, same. One of probably a little less influential, but one of the best comedies, spoof movies. They don't really make them like this anymore, and just an overall feel good movie. So, what do you have any? Have you seen either of these? Do you have a feeling on either of them? Is there what are you leaning towards?
Yeah, I've actually seen both of them, and they're both great.
Wow.
Yep, I've seen both of them. They're great. But I mean, man, we would be missing the independent film of all independent films if we didn't do Clerks in recognition of Clerks 3 being
Yes.
greenlit.
Oh my God. Yes.
So we have to do Clerks
do it.
strictly because of that greenlit Scripts 3 or Clerks 3.
Scripts 3.
Scripts.
I love it.
Nobody take our independent film name Scripts. Don't do it.
Oh my God. I love it. I love it. Yes, Clerks 3 has been announced greenlit. I actually, funny story. I got an ad on my Facebook that was like, Clerks 3 is casting. And I was like, oh, what the heck? I like threw it. It's in Jersey. I threw in my thing. I thought there was going to be more to the sign up where it would say where you would answer some questions or something, and it would like weed some people out. They literally just wanted your name and your like phone number and your zip code. So I went to hit next, expecting there to be a second page on the application, and it was like application submitted. And I've had 3 text messages come through today asking me to show up for an open call tomorrow. So, Aaron, tune in next time because Aaron will not be appearing in Clerks 3, but I will be here talking about the original Clerks, one of the best, one of my favorites, and I can't wait to do it.
It'll be fun. I'm excited.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching At the Movies. As said, later this week, we got an episode after the movies coming down the line. It is a classic horror story, which is streaming on Netflix. We hope to see you there.
See you then.